Tell us your name.
Eugene Boone,
Where you live, Mr. Boone?
Abilene, Texas.
In 1963, Mr. Boone, were you a deputy sheriff of the county of Dallas?
Yes, sir, I was.
And at approximately 12:30 p.m. on the date November the 22nd, 1963, the day of the assassination, do you recall where you were?
Yes, sir.
And where was that?
In front of the sheriff's office at 505 Main Street.
Did you hear any shots around that time?
Yes, sir, I did.
Would you please show the jury where you were at the time you heard the shots, where you ran to, and what you did when you arrived at that area?
Generally, I was in this area right here. I ran down Main Street and around this cement works across this grassy area here, and then eventually over this the fence and the cement wall abutment here into the freight yards.
This is the famous grassy knoll area right here.
Yes, sir.
Can the jury see this? Did you find any evidence at all of a gunman having been in that area right there?
No, sir.
I'm talking about the grassy knoll area and the railroad yard area behind the grassy knoll area.
No, sir. As I recall, there were cars parked in this area right here. This area here, there was a flower bed in this area here. I did examine the flower bed and the foliage in this area and down this area here, and could see no footprints in the flower beds that had recently been turned, or was there any indication of any powder burns, anything like that on any of the foliage that we could see.
Okay, you may resume the witness stand. After you searched the area about which you've just been testifying to, Mr. Boone, I understand you went to the 6th floor of the book depository building and searched that floor with other law enforcement officers. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Exhibit number 11. Now on the screen is a photograph, Mr. Boone, of stacks of cartons or boxes near a window. Do you recognize what is depicted in this photograph?
The boxes on the inside of the southeast building, the southeast floor of the 6th floor of the school book depository, the southeast corner.
When you arrived on the 6th floor, is this the way the cartons were stacked around that window?
Yes, sir.
So you could almost say there was a sniper's nest around that window.
Yes, sir.
How long after the shots that you heard did you arrive?
Excuse me. But it seems to me, Your Honor, that this man has been leading all morning, over and over again, even to the point that he had one witness led into what he would remember forever. And I object to that. Now, I just want the record to show that I object to that. And if you want me not to make any further objections on that kind, I'd like the record to reveal that you've instructed me not to do that, not to make any more such objections, and I'll not make any. But I want you to know that I do object to the continuous leading questions of counsel.
Keep on your feet, Mr. Spence, if you would, please.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Spence, my ruling is you can make any objection that you want to. Don't ever tell the court that you're just standing up and you know that it is a waste of time because you don't get any of them. I don't just decide, except on the basis of the law as I feel it is, whether your objection is good or whether it's bad. As to what it looked like, I sustained as to what it looked like. You can make your description on that part only. Thank you, sir. You may be seated.
Now, may I have a ruling on my objection, please?
Yes, sir. I sustained as to what it looked like, as to the sniper's bit.
May I have a ruling on whether or not it was leading?
It was leading.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may proceed, Mr. Billy.
What do those cartons and boxes look like to you?
It looked like an attempt to hide something on the other side.
If someone had been walking on that 6th floor and someone was behind those boxes, could the person behind the boxes have been seen?
They would be concealed from either the elevator or the stairwell across the building.
Exhibit 12. Next on the screen is another photograph. Do you recognize what is depicted in this photograph?
Yes, sir. It's the area between the row of boxes on the previous exhibit and the window. Looks like a place where a rifle could rest.
Those boxes look like a gun rest.
Yes, sir, as I remember them.
Did you eventually spot a rifle on the 6th floor, Mr. Boone?
Yes, sir, I did.
Exhibit 14. Do you recognize what is depicted in this photograph?
Yes, sir. The rifle.
The rifle that you saw on the 6th floor?
Yes, sir.
Is that the way the rifle looked when you found it?
Yes, sir.
When you first looked at the weapon, Mr. Boone, did you mistakenly take it for a 7.65 millimeter Mauser?
Yes, sir.
And why did you think it was a Mauser?
Well, Mauser basically refers to the bolt action, and there were a lot of military weapons around at that point in time.
Is Mauser kind of a generic term for a bolt-action rifle?
Yes, sir.
You are not an expert on firearms.
I am not.
Thank you, Mr. Boone. No further questions.
Mr. Spence,
Thank you.
you may inquire.
You were the one that found this gun. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, not to belittle you in any way, well, you just happened to be there. But anybody could have found that gun, couldn't they?
If they were looking in the right direction, yes, sir.
I mean, anybody that went up on the 6th floor looking for something would have had to been blind not to see it. Isn't that right, sir?
No, sir.
I mean, there it is. That's the way you saw it. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir.
I mean, they took enough time to create a so-called sniper's den of boxes, didn't they?
Yes, sir.
Don't you think they would have taken sufficient time, unless they wanted the gun to be found, to find a place to hide the gun where you just couldn't walk right up and see it? For example, right in there. Well, all right. Now, about the shells. You found shells up there, didn't you?
Officer Luke Mooney found some cartridge
3
cases.
cartridge cases, weren't there?
Yes, sir.
Right out in plain sight, in front of anybody that wanted to see them, right in the so-called sniper's den. Isn't that true?
Behind the boxes, yes, sir.
And don't you think that anybody who was attempting to perform an assassination, who would indeed set up a sniper's den, would have taken the time to pick up 3 cartridges so they couldn't be connected with his rifle? Doesn't that seem reasonable? Or do you think, officer, or did you consider the possibility that the 3 cartridge cases were left there, like the rifle, so that they could be found? Did you give that some thought?
No, sir.
Now, a Mauser, you know, is considered to be a much better gun than a Mannlicher, in a general sense. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir.
That is, it shoots better and it shoots faster, doesn't it?
Well, it shoots better. It's a more accurate weapon.
And a Mannlicher, Italian Mannlicher, on the other hand, like the one involved in this case, is actually considered by those who are experts in firearms as a piece of junk. Isn't that true?
I would think so.
Thank you. That piece of junk that we just looked at cost about $21. Isn't that right, sir?
I really don't know, sir.
And so far as you're concerned, at the time, that gun that you saw in the stacks was a Mauser. Isn't that right?
At that point in time, yes, sir.
And it wasn't until after a certain gun in the possession of the FBI suddenly turned out to be a Mannlicher that it changed from being a Mauser to a Mannlicher. Isn't that true?
I would say that's an accurate statement.
Yes,
sir.
thank you. And isn't it true that you, Officer Boone, were never later able to identify the rifle that you found at the Texas School Book Depository as the one that was later shown to you as being the gun involved in this assassination? Isn't that true?
That's correct.
You see people running toward the grassy knoll, sir?
Yes.
There were scores of them, were there not?
Yes, running in the direction of the grassy knoll, that's correct. Also in the direction of the assassination scene.
Now, you said you checked the area of the grassy knoll for powder burns?
Yeah, we checked the foliage, yes, sir.
For
And the
powder
fire-
burns? For
and the
powder
fire
burns? How did you
Yes,
check
sir.
it? Visually?
Yes, sir.
Well, did you find any?
No, sir.
Do you think you would have been able to recognize powder burns in the foliage if you had seen it?
I believe so, sir.
Did you find any powder burns up in the 6th floor of the Texas Book Depository?
I did not.
Did you know of anybody in the history of the world who found any powder burns up there?
Not to my knowledge, no,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Redirect.
Very briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Boone, did the FBI ever show you a rifle which they said was a rifle found on the 6th floor?
Yes, sir.
And what did you say when you looked at that rifle?
It appears to be the rifle that I saw on the 6th floor of the school book
Well,
depository.
didn't you just tell Mr. Spence that you could not identify it?
I could not identify it positively because I did not have an identifying mark on the weapon.
Okay, but it appeared to be the same
It
rifle.
appeared to be the same
Ask an
weapon.
answer.
Thank you. No further questions.
Did it appear to be a Mannlicher?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. You may step down.